Wrestling fans, if you are not sitting down right now, sit down, because what happened behind the curtain of WWE SmackDown is the kind of backstage explosion that cannot simply be erased with a scripted segment or a smiling social media clip the next morning. Triple H, the man overseeing WWE creative, reportedly lost his composure after an incident involving Gunther and Nick Aldis that pushed the boundaries of what was supposed to be a storyline. What happened next reportedly left staff and wrestlers stunned, because for a brief moment, the line between scripted wrestling drama and genuine danger appeared to disappear. Let's rewind, because this did not come out of nowhere. Gunther's relationship with Nick Aldis had been deteriorating for weeks. Gunther viewed Aldis as an obstacle standing between him and the championship opportunities he believed he deserved. Aldis, meanwhile, was not simply an authority figure hiding behind a desk. Before becoming a general manager, he had already established himself as a legitimate world champion and experienced professional wrestler. That history made their conflict feel different. Gunther repeatedly made his frustration known, questioning Aldis's decisions and treating him less like an authority figure and more like an enemy who was deliberately blocking his path. Aldis refused to back down, and what began as verbal confrontation gradually became physical. Then everything exploded. After Gunther was denied another opportunity in the championship picture, he confronted Aldis and locked him in a sleeper hold. The attack went beyond a simple shove or staged confrontation. Gunther refused to release the hold, leaving Aldis unconscious in front of the cameras. Backstage, the atmosphere reportedly changed immediately. Wrestlers are accustomed to chaos. They perform dangerous moves, take punishment, and work through injuries as part of the business. But there is a huge difference between taking a planned risk inside a wrestling match and watching someone appear to lose control during an angle. That distinction is what reportedly triggered Triple H's fury. As the person responsible for the overall direction of the product, Triple H could not simply treat the situation as another dramatic television moment. A member of the roster had physically attacked a company authority figure and apparently gone too far with the choke. Suddenly, the question was no longer how compelling the segment looked on television. The question was whether Gunther had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. According to reports surrounding the incident, Triple H confronted Gunther and made the consequences clear. Gunther was reportedly told that under different circumstances, his actions could have resulted in immediate termination. Think about the seriousness of that statement. This was not an authority figure delivering a dramatic line for the cameras. It was a warning about employment. Gunther's position on the roster was reportedly in genuine jeopardy. And yet, he was not fired. That is where the situation becomes much more complicated. Rather than removing one of WWE's biggest stars from television, the company found a way to turn the controversy into another piece of the ongoing story. Gunther's punishment became a challenge rather than an outright dismissal, with his future championship aspirations placed in jeopardy. Instead of simply erasing Gunther from the picture, Triple H reportedly used the threat of termination as leverage. That decision tells us something important about how professional wrestling works at the highest level. Discipline matters, but so does business. Gunther is not an insignificant mid-card performer who can disappear for several months without affecting the product. He is one of the company's most recognizable and successful wrestlers, and his presentation has been built around dominance, intimidation, and the idea that he can dismantle almost anyone placed in front of him. That makes his character valuable. It also explains why WWE would be reluctant to throw away that investment, even after an incident serious enough to reportedly anger Triple H. The resulting stipulation added another layer to the story. Gunther and Sami Zayn were given a pathway back toward the championship picture by agreeing to face CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. If they could win, the championship match at SummerSlam would become a fatal four-way. On paper, that sounds like a reward, but it can also be viewed as punishment wrapped inside opportunity. Gunther was not simply handed another title shot. He had to earn his way back into contention after putting his position on the roster at risk. Triple H effectively transformed a major backstage problem into a high-stakes storyline that could generate more interest, more tension, and ultimately, more money. That is the chess match behind professional wrestling. Now let's talk about Nick Aldis, because he is arguably the most overlooked part of this entire situation. Aldis is not merely the authority figure who happened to get caught in Gunther's path. He is an accomplished wrestler with a long history of championship success. His decision to eventually step away from the suit and confront Gunther in the ring gave the story an emotional payoff. At SummerSlam, Aldis entered to a major ovation, with his family watching from ringside. The symbolism was obvious. For weeks, Gunther had treated him as someone who did not belong in his way. Now Aldis had the opportunity to settle the issue inside the ring. The match became about more than championships or rankings. It was about pride. Aldis fought Gunther directly, refusing to be intimidated by the man who had humiliated him and choked him unconscious. The physicality was intense, and the crowd was firmly behind Aldis. But Gunther ultimately won, using the same sleeper hold that had become central to their rivalry. That created a strange full-circle conclusion. The move that originally caused the backstage controversy became the same weapon Gunther used to finish their rivalry. From a storytelling perspective, it was effective. From a moral perspective, it raises an uncomfortable question. Did WWE just reward the aggressor? Gunther was the person who crossed the line. Aldis was the person who suffered the consequences. Yet by the end of the story, Gunther was still standing, still positioned as one of WWE's most dangerous stars, and still moving closer to the championship picture. Aldis, meanwhile, became part of Gunther's larger narrative. That may be frustrating to some fans, but it also demonstrates how wrestling storytelling often works. The performer who creates the most chaos can sometimes become the center of the story, precisely because the chaos creates attention. And that brings us back to Triple H. His reported reaction makes sense when viewed through the lens of his own experience as a wrestler. Triple H understands how dangerous it can be when performers blur the boundary between physical storytelling and legitimate aggression. Professional wrestling depends on trust. Every punch, throw, submission, and impact requires two people to trust each other. Even the most violent-looking moments are carefully constructed around timing, communication, and control. If that control disappears, someone can get seriously hurt. Watching a wrestler choke another performer unconscious therefore represents more than a dramatic television moment. It represents the possibility that something has gone genuinely wrong. That is why Triple H's reported anger is so significant. This was not simply a creative disagreement. It was reportedly a moment where the person responsible for the entire operation had to determine whether one of his biggest stars had become a liability. Ultimately, WWE chose not to throw Gunther away. Instead, the company used the controversy to strengthen his character, increase the stakes around his matches, and keep him positioned near the top of the card. And there is a business reason for that. Gunther has become one of the most protected and dominant performers of this era. His reputation is built around destroying opponents, breaking records, and making every match feel like a fight for survival. His nickname, the Career Killer, is not simply marketing, it is the foundation of his character. So while the backstage fallout may have looked like a crisis, WWE ultimately turned that crisis into content. The real question now is whether Gunther learned anything from the incident, or whether the company has simply reinforced the idea that the more dangerous and unpredictable he becomes, the more valuable he is. Because if it is the latter, then the most explosive part of this story may not be what happened to Nick Aldis. It may be what WWE has